What if everything you believed about love, family, and human connection was only half the story? That the bonds we hold most sacred, our relationships with those who raised us, the people who were supposed to love us unconditionally, are not simply acts of devotion but carefully orchestrated patterns written by evolution itself. This is not a comforting thought. It is not a notion wrapped in warm nostalgia or moral platitudes. It is a shadowed truth, a deep, uncomfortable reality that our ancestors, our cultures, and even modern science have been hesitant to confront. Because when we stare too closely at the machinery of human nature, what we find is not always beautiful. Sometimes it is brutal, precise, and indifferent to sentiment. Today we will explore that hidden machinery. We will trace the ways in which our earliest relationships, those first encounters with love and attention, are influenced by forces we rarely understand. Forces that shape who we become, how we seek connection, and why the world of desire, loyalty, and attraction often feels unfair or inexplicable. By the end of this journey, you will see human behavior in a new light. You will confront truth that many shy away from, that parental love can be strategic, that childhood experiences leave invisible legacies, and that much of what drives our choices in life, love and ambition, is guided by hidden rules written long before we were born. If you are ready to look beyond comforting myths and face the unvarnished realities of human nature, then let us begin. But beware. Once you peer behind the curtain, there is no turning back. Let us travel back, not to a laboratory, but to the misty highlands of medieval Europe, where survival was never guaranteed, and every decision carried consequences measured in life and death. Picture a small, stone-walled homestead perched atop a windswept hill, its hearth the only barrier against the bitter cold. Inside, a woman we will call Ilara tends to a modest fire. She has 3 children. The eldest, Roland, strong and energetic, already showing signs of a commanding presence that reminds the villagers of his late father. The middle child, Theo, quiet, clever, endlessly curious, yet fragile in health. And the youngest, little Lior, delicate and prone to illness, always trailing behind in strength and stature. The winter has been merciless and food scarce. The family's meager provisions could sustain 2 of the children until spring, but not 3. The question of survival, unspoken yet omnipresent, hangs over every meal, every choice. One morning, after a night spent in agonizing contemplation, Ilara makes a decision. Lior disappears, vanishes into the forests of frost and shadow. The villagers whisper of wolves or wandering spirits, but the truth is known only to Ilara. She has allocated her resources, her attention, her protection, her love, toward the children with the highest chance of survival, the greatest potential to thrive and continue her lineage. Roland, the strong heir, will endure. Theo, the clever and adaptable, will endure. Little Lior, frail and fragile, will not. The loss is gut-wrenching, unbearable, yet in the quiet logic of evolution, it is not cruelty. It is survival, ruthless, calculated, and effective. This is not a story of villainy. It is a story of the underlying forces that shape maternal behavior, the unseen algorithms of life that dictate investment and attention. Anthropologists and evolutionary psychologists call this phenomenon the parental investment strategy, the unconscious drive to favor children who offer the greatest potential reproductive return. In a world of scarcity, love is not boundless. It is measured, allocated, and sometimes withdrawn to preserve the survival of the lineage. These dynamics are not confined to humans. Across the natural world, mothers make decisions that, to human eyes, appear shocking, but to nature are logical. A tigress may abandon the weakest cub in a litter, focusing her milk and energy on those most likely to survive the harsh savanna. A bird may discard an egg when food is insufficient. These acts are not malicious. They are the impartial arithmetic of life and death. And yet, humans cloak these instincts in stories of unconditional love, rituals, and moral codes. We sanctify motherhood, creating myths of eternal devotion and sacrifice. But behind the warmth of a mother's embrace often lies a hidden calculus, a silent prioritization, a biological algorithm older than society itself. Hilara's choice, hidden from the world, mirrors a pattern repeated across millennia. It is subtle, yet its consequences ripple outward, shaping not just the survivors, but generations to come. Roland and Theo carry her attention, her favor, and the trajectory of their development benefits from the concentrated investment. Lior, absent, leaves behind a vacuum, a ghost imprint in the psyche of those left behind, a reminder that love, even maternal love, is sometimes conditional and always consequential. Ilara's story is more than a haunting tale of survival. It is a window into the mechanisms that govern human behavior, hidden beneath the veneer of culture and morality. To understand it, we must turn to the intersection of evolutionary biology and psychology, a place where cold, unblinking logic meets the warmth of human emotion. At the core of this understanding is the principle of parental investment, first formalized in evolutionary theory. Every parent has finite resources: time, energy, attention, and protection. In ancestral environments, these resources had to be allocated strategically. A child who is strong, healthy, or socially adept represents a higher probability of passing on the parent's genes. A child who is frail, less adaptable, or less likely to survive may receive less investment, not out of cruelty but as a matter of evolutionary efficiency. This is not mere speculation. Studies in evolutionary psychology demonstrate that parents often unconsciously bias their attention and resources toward children with the greatest reproductive promise. Birth order, health, temperament, and even social status can subtly influence the allocation of care. Firstborn children frequently receive concentrated investment because they represent the initial high-stakes trial of the parental genetic project. Younger siblings, while loved, often receive a diluted version of this attention, functioning as a diversification strategy to ensure at least some genetic continuity. In modern terms, this mechanism is often invisible, but its consequences are unmistakable. Children grow up learning, consciously or not, where parental favor lies. They perceive patterns: who gets praised, who gets guidance, who gets encouragement. And those patterns shape not just their self-esteem but their lifelong behavior, ambitions, and social strategies. Consider another dimension: maternal stress and its biological consequences. Research in epigenetics has revealed that a mother's physical and emotional state during pregnancy can program a child's nervous system. Cortisol levels, anxiety, and trauma experienced by the mother can alter the developing fetus's stress response, amygdala sensitivity, and even long-term risk for anxiety or depression. A mother living in constant vigilance, whether due to scarcity, societal pressures, or personal trauma, passes that vigilance to her child. In essence, a son or daughter can inherit a physiological blueprint shaped by experiences they never lived, responding to dangers and pressures their ancestors endured. Even more striking is how these dynamics manifest in subtle social behaviors. Intelligence, creativity, athletic ability, or social charm, traits historically linked to survival and reproductive success, often guide the attention a parent gives. A child who excels in school, athletics, or social hierarchies may unconsciously become the favored recipient of affection and resources. Conversely, children who struggle, who display vulnerabilities, or who do not fulfill parental expectations may experience neglect, criticism, or withdrawal of support. This is not about morality. It is about optimization, the silent logic of life. Philosophically, this challenges our comforting myths of unconditional love. The idea that a parent's devotion is limitless is appealing, but it is not always accurate. Love, as a biological construct, has boundaries, priorities, and goals. It is not inherently evil, but it is pragmatic. The narrative of selfless, infinite maternal love may exist more as a societal myth than as a universal reality. This insight extends beyond the home and into the broader human experience. Social hierarchies, mentorship, and even cultural values echo these primal rules. Society often rewards those who succeed according to established criteria: strength, intelligence, creativity, resourcefulness, while those who struggle must fight harder for attention and validation. The echoes of maternal and parental investment strategies resonate through classrooms, workplaces, and social networks, shaping the very structure of human interaction. Understanding this framework illuminates a profound truth. Much of what we experience as preference, rejection, or favoritism is neither arbitrary nor personal. It is a reflection of deep, evolved imperatives that trace back millions of years, shaping the patterns of human attention, care, and emotional investment. These hidden forces influence not just childhood experiences, but adult relationships, career trajectories, and the very way we perceive our own worth. And yet, knowing this is only the beginning. The next step is to see how these mechanisms manifest in modern life, often in ways we do not recognize, through subtle patterns of attention, unconscious bias, and inherited psychological imprinting. This is where history meets the present, where theory becomes lived experience, and where the true depth of human nature is revealed. The lessons of Alara's homestead and the evolutionary algorithms of parental investment are not confined to medieval Europe or the animal kingdom. They manifest in subtle yet profound ways in our modern lives, shaping how we grow, how we relate, and how we perceive our own worth. Consider the story of Julian, a boy growing up in a bustling city. His older sister, radiant in her charisma and athletic ability, seemed to command the household's attention effortlessly. Julian, thoughtful and academically inclined, often found himself in the background. He tried desperately to capture his mother's gaze, excelling in science fairs, completing projects meticulously, even volunteering to help around the house. But her focus lingered on his sister's achievements. Julian's experience is not uncommon. Modern research shows that parents unconsciously invest more attention and resources in children who display traits they perceive as most likely to succeed socially or professionally. This favoritism may manifest in praise, encouragement, or material support, while other children, equally worthy in intrinsic value, receive comparatively less reinforcement. Over time, these disparities shape self-perception, confidence, and behavior. Children like Julian may internalize a sense of conditional worth, that love and approval must be earned, not given freely. This dynamic extends into adult life, where the performance trap often emerges. Men and women alike may find themselves striving for validation, achievement, or social approval, unconsciously seeking the affection and recognition that was inconsistently given in childhood. The problem is that these efforts are rarely about self-fulfillment. They are about meeting the invisible criteria set by those whose approval shaped their earliest experiences. Take, for example, the case of Maya and her son Liam. Maya, a brilliant woman, had endured a childhood overshadowed by her father's high expectations and distant approval. When Liam was born, she loved him deeply, but her attention and praise were often directed toward behaviors that reflected her own unmet ideals: academic success, leadership, and emotional resilience. Liam grew into a conscientious, high-achieving young man, yet he constantly felt as if he were chasing a standard he could never fully meet. His achievements, though substantial, felt hollow because they were measured against an internalized blueprint designed for someone else, the child his mother unconsciously wished he would be. These patterns extend into relationships as well. Romantic partners often become proxies, unconsciously stepping into roles shaped by early parental dynamics. A man might find himself repeatedly drawn to women who resemble his mother in temperament or expectations, while women may seek partners who reflect the qualities or absences of their fathers. This is not intentional, but a deeply rooted psychological imprinting. In essence, people often fall in love with echoes of unresolved childhood experiences. Even subtle interactions in workplaces or social circles echo these dynamics. Recognition, mentorship, and attention are disproportionately given to individuals who align with the values or ideals of those in positions of power, mirroring, in a societal scale, the biases and preferences observed in familial settings. These unconscious allocations reinforce patterns of advantage and disadvantage, perpetuating cycles that originated in early life experiences. Importantly, the modern manifestation of these ancient rules is rarely a matter of conscious cruelty. Parents, mentors, and partners are usually unaware of the ways their attention, or lack thereof, shapes others' development. Likewise, children and adults often interpret these patterns personally, feeling rejected or unworthy, when in reality, they are responding to long-standing evolutionary and psychological imperatives. Understanding these dynamics illuminates the root of many personal frustrations and relationship challenges. The sibling rivalry that lingered from childhood, the inexplicable tension with a partner, the constant need for external validation. These are not random occurrences. They are echoes of a deep evolutionary logic written into the fabric of human behavior, shaping lives long after the original circumstances have passed. And yet recognizing these patterns is liberating. Awareness allows individuals to disentangle their self-worth from conditional approval, to understand that many of the struggles they face are inherited, projected, or misaligned expectations rather than inherent failures. This insight is the bridge from understanding to transformation, from unconscious reaction to conscious choice. As we examine these modern manifestations, it becomes clear that the invisible architecture of parental influence, evolutionary prioritization, and psychological imprinting extends far beyond childhood. It shapes careers, friendships, romantic entanglements, and even self-perception. The patterns are ancient, yet they operate in profoundly contemporary ways, influencing our everyday lives in ways we rarely recognize but are never truly free from. The stories of Julian, Liam, and countless others reveal a profound truth. Much of human experience, love, recognition, success, even self-worth, is filtered through invisible patterns established long before we fully understood them. Philosophically, this raises a question that has haunted thinkers for centuries. To what extent are we truly free? Human freedom, in its purest form, is the ability to choose without compulsion or invisible influence. Yet from the moment of birth, we are shaped by forces both biological and psychological. Evolutionary algorithms prioritize certain traits, parental investment favors some children over others, and the emotional and cognitive legacies of our caregivers leave traces in our nervous systems, shaping our reactions, desires, and fears. These influences are neither malicious nor fair. They are simply the machinery of life. This awareness is sobering, but it is also empowering. Philosophy teaches us that recognizing constraints is the first step toward transcending them. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of self-overcoming, the act of confronting the forces that limit us and actively transforming ourselves in response. To understand the hidden architectures of parental preference, trauma, and psychological imprinting is not to resign ourselves to fate. It is to locate the levers of change within our own hands. Consider love, for instance. The patterns of conditional attention we inherit from our parents often shape whom we find attractive and how we engage in relationships. A son who unconsciously seeks his mother's approval may chase partners who replicate the dynamics of his childhood. A daughter might be drawn to men who embody the qualities of her father, whether protective, absent, or demanding. On the surface, these choices seem personal, spontaneous, or even romantic, but they are often echoes of deeply rooted psychological imprints. The philosophical insight here is profound. Much of what we consider desire, ambition, or aspiration is in fact a response to inherited dynamics, rather than an expression of pure autonomous selfhood. Recognizing this allows us to disentangle ourselves from the scripts imposed upon us. We can begin to question, which of my desires are genuinely mine, and which are inherited patterns replaying in my life? Which of my relationships are authentic connections, and which are arenas where I am unconsciously performing roles written long before my birth? This reflection also illuminates a path to liberation. Awareness alone is insufficient. It must be paired with conscious action. By studying the patterns that shape us, naming them, and observing their influence on our choices, we reclaim the power to act intentionally. We can cultivate self-defined goals, choose partners based on genuine compatibility rather than unconscious proxy dynamics, and develop self-worth independent of conditional approval. Moreover, this understanding reshapes how we view human nature itself. We are not simple creatures driven by reason alone, nor are we entirely the victims of our upbringing or biology. We are complex beings, capable of recognizing the invisible forces acting upon us and consciously redirecting their influence. This is the essence of philosophical liberation, the capacity to acknowledge the architecture of influence without being enslaved by it. The lesson is clear. True autonomy comes not from denying the existence of these patterns, but from confronting them with courage and clarity. By illuminating the hidden machinery of parental preference, inherited trauma, and unconscious imprinting, we open a door to genuine self-determination. We begin to live not as extensions of the expectations and calculations of others, but as creators of our own identity, authors of our own destiny. Understanding the hidden forces that shape our lives is one thing. Acting upon that knowledge is another. Self-liberation, the conscious reclaiming of agency, requires both courage and deliberate strategy. It is a process of peeling back the layers of expectation, inherited trauma, and unconscious programming to discover the authentic self beneath. Begin by examining the patterns in your life, your ambitions, fears, desires, and relationships. Ask yourself, which parts of me are genuinely mine, and which are echoes of someone else's expectations? Did I choose my career path because it aligns with my passions or because it mirrors the approval I sought from a parent? Are my relationships fulfilling because of genuine connection, or am I unconsciously performing a role to satisfy unresolved dynamics? This requires brutal honesty and reflection. Journaling, meditation, or therapy can help uncover these hidden scripts. The goal is not to assign blame, but to map the unconscious architecture that has guided your choices. Next, observe your interactions and relationships through the lens of proxy dynamics. Are you being treated as a person or as a symbol? Do partners, colleagues, or friends respond to you as yourself or as a reflection of someone else in their life, often a parent or past figure? Awareness of these dynamics allows you to disengage from roles that were never meant to be yours and reclaim your agency. Much of the struggle rooted in parental imprinting and early favoritism is tied to conditional validation, the belief that love, approval, or worth must be earned. To break free, cultivate self-validation. Celebrate achievements without external approval. Acknowledge your value independent of comparison, competition, or the approval of others. This is not arrogance, it is self-authenticity. Inherited trauma, particularly maternal and paternal imprinting, often manifests as subtle anxiety, perfectionism, or relational patterns. Consciously confronting these legacies is crucial. Practices such as journaling, therapy, mindfulness, or even somatic work can help release inherited tension and reprogram automatic responses. You are not your mother's anxieties, nor your father's unresolved conflicts. You are a unique being capable of choosing how to respond. With awareness, the next step is to form connections based on authenticity rather than unconscious role-playing. Seek partners, friends, and mentors who engage with you as a full, independent person, not as a proxy for someone else. Listen to your own desires and boundaries. Communicate openly. Refuse to accept relationships that treat you primarily as a symbol of someone else's past, expectation, or ideal. Finally, direct your energy toward goals, values, and ambitions that resonate with your authentic self. Whether in career, creativity, or personal growth, define your purpose by what feels meaningful to you, not by what you were conditioned to pursue for approval. This may feel disorienting at first. The patterns of inherited expectation are deeply ingrained, but persistence rewires the mind. Over time, choices rooted in genuine desire replace those dictated by invisible scripts. This process is neither quick nor easy. It is a lifetime's work, demanding courage, reflection, and self-compassion. But the reward is profound. liberation from invisible chains, freedom from unconscious proxy dynamics, and the capacity to experience relationships, achievements, and self-worth that are truly your own. Philosophically, this journey mirrors the heroic path described by Nietzsche and echoed in countless wisdom traditions. A conscious confrontation with inherited forces, a deliberate shaping of the self, and the creation of a life that is not merely reactive, but intentional, authentic, and free. By following these steps, the patterns of conditional love, proxy dynamics, and inherited trauma no longer dictate your choices. You emerge not as a passive participant in the legacy of others, but as the author of your own identity. A life written by your conscious decisions rather than by unconscious imprints. We have traveled a long path together, from the fog-shrouded Viking longhouses to the subtle dynamics of modern families, from the hidden calculations of evolution to the psychological imprints shaping our adult lives. Along the way, we have seen the patterns that govern parental investment, the echoes of conditional love, and the invisible scripts that influence our desires, ambitions, and relationships. Yet knowledge is not destiny. Understanding these dynamics is not a call to despair, but a call to conscious action. You now have the tools to recognize where your life has been unconsciously guided by forces beyond your awareness. You have the opportunity to reclaim agency, disentangle your identity from inherited scripts, and craft a life that is authentically your own. The path forward is not about resentment or blame. It is about awareness, courage, and deliberate choice. It is about auditing your life, identifying proxy dynamics, embracing self-validation, confronting emotional legacies, and cultivating relationships that honor the person you truly are. This is the work of self-liberation, the heroic act of creating a life defined not by the ghosts of the past, but by the conscious choices of the present. Imagine a life in which your achievements are celebrated because they reflect your genuine efforts, not because they satisfy a hidden expectation. Imagine relationships where you are loved not for what you symbolize, but for who you authentically are. Imagine stepping into the world fully aware of the invisible currents shaping your life, and choosing to navigate them with wisdom, integrity, and self-determination. This is the essence of freedom. This is the promise of conscious self-overcoming. The Cinderella gene, the invisible architecture of parental preference, the inherited trauma. They may have written the first draft of your story, but you hold the pen now. You have the power to author the final chapters, to transform inherited shadows into conscious light, to convert patterns of conditional love into self-validated authenticity, to turn unconscious programming into deliberate, meaningful action. The journey is ongoing and the work is never complete, but the first step is always awareness. And now, having seen the machinery that operates behind the scenes of human behavior, you are ready to step forward, to choose, to create, to live a life not as a proxy, not as a reflection, but as the fully realized author of your own story. The war is over if you choose to lay down the weapons you were born holding. The life you have longed for, the life that is truly yours, awaits. Step into it consciously, courageously, and unconditionally.